So, as those of you who have been following me for a while probably know, I routinely make a guest appearance on the Rational Boomer podcast. Today was no different. Today was my last appearance before the election. And Mike and I had a great conversation. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about the Iowa poll that shows Kamala Harris ahead of Donald Trump by 3 percentage points. And now, I don't trust polls, and even though this is considered the best poll in the nation, we talked about that. We talked about the chance of Iowa actually flipping blue and House seats flipping blue. We talked about different states that could potentially flip and what that means. We talked about after the election, what's going to happen to the Republican Party, what's going to happen to Donald Trump, etc. We talked about just things going forward after the election and how things are going to look. We talked about George W. Bush and having why he hasn't made an endorsement one way or the other. We've talked about Republicans that have endorsed Kamala Harris and what that means, etc. It was a great podcast. We talked about a lot of topics. If you haven't checked me out on the Rational Boomer podcast before, or never checked out the Rational Boomer podcast, I'm going to tag the Rational Boomer below. You can find him here on TikTok as the Rational Boomer. Or you can search for his podcast on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts for the Rational Boomer. Like I said, you can find him here on TikTok. He's got a link tree in his bio. And go from there. Great. He's got a great show, and we had a great conversation. This will not be my last appearance. I will be back probably soon. And we're going to be talking about everything about the election, going forward. We talked about the media and how the media has gotten it wrong to this point about the polls, etc., and how bad this election could go. And it was just a great conversation. So if you're interested, I recommend you check it out. Again, that was over on the Rational Boomer podcast. I will link him below, or you can find it wherever you get your podcasts, and you can get the video version over on YouTube. Also, if you're over on YouTube checking out the Rational Boomer podcast, I myself am also on YouTube over at Analytical Iowan on YouTube. There's a link in my bio for that. And I have, beyond my TikToks, which I have posted all of my TikToks up on my YouTube page, I do post the one live I've done. That is up over there. That was back in June. And I'm probably going to be doing some more lives later. Those will also be up over on my YouTube page. And I've got a small section of videos I call Government Answers, where I do more of a deep dive into some questions I'm seeing people have about how things work within the government. If I see enough comments on it, I've done videos if I get inspired enough. And if there's anything you want me to cover in something like that, either shoot me a DM or send me an email over at analyticaliowan@gmail, and I will look into it, get a video up, either a TikTok reply or an actual, like a longer form video over on YouTube. So this was my final appearance. Great podcast. Recommend you check it out. Again, that was the Rational Boomer podcast. My final appearance prior to the election. Mike and I are in agreement about how the election's going to go. I recommend you give it a listen.